What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. This is the main event deep dive for UFC Vegas 35. We have Edson Barboza going against Chikadze, a main event that I'm really looking forward to. I know Wheezy is really looking forward to it as well. I feel like this main event is going to be one that a lot of people have a bunch of strong opinions on both sides. We have Edson Barboza, a veteran of the sport, has fought the top guys for the longest time, whereas we have Chikadze, a guy that's up and coming, a guy that has a lot of star power, and a guy that people really do like. So I can't wait for this main event. Uncle Weezy, what is up with you, and how are you feeling about this one so far?
Dude, I think this is a great fight, because a lot of times we've seen Edson Barboza just get grapple fucked by his opponents because they were afraid of his stand-up. But Giga Chikadze isn't going to do that to him. This is going to be a chance for us to see both of these guys practice what they're best at, and that's always going to make for a better fight for the fans. This is going to be a damn good main event, and I got a feeling you're right about that. I think people are going to be passionately on one side or the other, and it's a close fight, as far as the odds go. So I have a feeling that this is going to be one that's kind of like a contention point amongst a lot of people, but I'm looking forward to breaking down all the stats in detail with you here.
Yep, can't wait for it. As always, if you guys can leave a like on the video, also subscribe to the channel if you have not yet, so you don't miss out on all the other content throughout the week. My full card breakdown and prediction video will be out on Tuesday morning, going live Friday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, and then also Saturday, 1 hour prior to the prelims. Doing a new show this week, not going to announce what it is just yet. I'll be announcing it probably Friday on my live stream, but going to be doing a new show Saturday, 1 hour prior to the prelims. I think you guys are going to absolutely love it. So I say we get into it, and we will start with the tail of the tape between the two. We have Edson Barboza, who is 35 years old, 5'11", 75-inch reach, going against Chikadze. He is 32 years old, 6 foot, 74-inch reach. So right off the bat, Edson Barboza is going to be the older fighter by 3 years. 35 years old. Chikadze, not a really young guy himself at 32 years old. Edson Barboza is going to be 1 inch smaller in height, and then also going to have a 1 inch reach advantage is Edson Barboza. So taking a look at their last few fights there. So Edson Barboza is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Got knocked out by Justin Gaethje in the first round. Had a split decision loss to Paul Felder. A split decision loss to Dan Ige. And I personally did score that fight for Edson Barboza, but it was a very close fight nonetheless. After that, he did win a decision over Makwan Amarikani, and then just knocked out Shane Burgos with a nasty knockout. A really weird knockout where he was beating him up pretty much all fight, touching him up, and then all of a sudden, Burgos just like shuts down. A very scary knockout, but a great performance nonetheless. So as far as Chikadze, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Did win a split decision over Jamal Emmers in a fight that I personally did score for Jamal Emmers, but a fight that was close nonetheless. A decision win over Erwin Rivera, a decision win over Omar Morales, and then a knockout win over Jamie Simmons, and then Cub Swanson knocked him out as well. Cub Swanson being probably his best win of his entire career, and probably by a significant margin as well. And you can see right here that there is a big discrepancy in just who the guys they're facing. I mean, Erwin Rivera, Jamie Simmons, whereas Barboza's facing guys like Justin Gaethje, guys like, Dan Ige. So Uncle Weezy, let's get into the pro experience stats.
Yeah, obviously Barboza much more experienced here, 16 more professional fights, 200 more minutes in the pro cage. We're talking about 7 more years as a professional mixed martial artist. And you look at 18 more UFC fights, almost more than 200 more minutes in the UFC cage. Obviously Edson Barboza far more experienced here, and he's been fighting obviously the far better level of competition as well. And if we look at the finish stats here, 64% overall by Edson Barboza, 59% by KO. And we look at Chikadze's got a 70% finish rate, 62% by KO. So these guys, when they're finishing fights, when they're at their best, they're knocking people out. So this is going to be a striker's delight, man. This is going to be a really fun one to watch. These two bang it out at range.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. You bring up the finish stats here. Both guys pretty solid finishes. You mentioned the 70% finish rate for Giga, 64% finish rate for Barboza. Giga's never been knocked out in 15 fights, but he was submitted by Austin Springer. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but I think it'd be interesting to see if Barboza does go for takedowns in this fight. I do think that'd be a path, but we'll talk about it. It's not really something he does. As far as Barboza, he has been finished 5 times out of his 9 losses, 3 coming by knockout. but he's getting knocked out by guys like Justin Gaethje. He's getting knocked out by guys like, Kevin Lee in a fight he pretty much got dominated in for the most part. So I think both guys have pretty solid chins, and I think both guys are capable finishers, but I think it's going to be probably an all-out war on the feet. I think it's going to be such an exciting fight, but if somebody was to shoot a takedown, I'm kind of leaning towards the Barboza side.
Yeah, for sure, because Chikadze has shot takedowns, which is weird. He's shot 6 in 7 fights, so not quite won a fight, but Barboza under won a fight as well. So that, you do kind of anticipate this being a striking-based fight. So let's look at those striking-based statistics here. And let me get my notes up. We've got both of these guys being studs, but Barboza in particular works really well behind his leg kicks. It's definitely a big part of his attack as a professional. 4.15 significant strikes a minute, and he absorbs 4.15. He's got a 1.17% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, and he's averaging 0.73 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Very solid 60% striking defense, and over a 25 fight sample size. Only been knocked down 3 times in 25 fights and in 1,189 significant strikes absorbed. He's only been knocked down by Justin Gaethje, Jamie Varner, and Donald Cerrone over, this many fights. So he's got a really good chin too. And I just gotten done watching the Cerrone fight before we got on here doing this, and he got caught with a jab. He just flat out didn't see it. And up to that point, he was absolutely putting it on Cerrone, and I think he was close to knocking him out. So, yeah, Barboza is such a fantastic striker, and those leg kicks are going to be a very important part of the striking attack here. And in addition to that, when I was watching the tape on Chikadze, he does not do well when he's being pressured. So if Edson Barboza can pressure Giga Chikadze, that is going to be a really important part of making Giga uncomfortable, of making him move backwards, which is very exhausting. That will tax his conditioning quicker than if he's moving forward or standing in one place. So I think leg kicks are very key here for Barboza. Pressure is very key here, because I think as this fight goes on, we're going to see Barboza look better and better, and we're going to see Chikadze fade. Chikadze, the striking stats, he's an elite kickboxer. He was a glory kickboxer before he came to MMA. He's got lethal body kicks, and he throws the Giga kick, which is a left kick from the southpaw stance where he goes right at your liver. And it is a massive part of his attack. But Giga is a very fluid striker. He's constantly changing stances. So he's a very difficult guy to get a beat on, because he can hurt you from both stances. He's very long for a featherweight. Even though Barboza does have a 1-inch reach advantage in this fight, Giga Chikadze is a 6-foot featherweight. So it's very unusual to be that tall in this division. He also has very good striking defense at 60.56%, and he's never been knocked down in the UFC. But Chikadze is going to be at his best when he's spamming those body kicks. If he lands one, if you go back and watch the Jamie Simmons fight, it was when he landed a really nasty kick to the body that brought Simmons' hands down from his head down to his body. The next kick right to the head, slept poor Jamie. That was it for him. So, yeah. Dude, both of these guys, they need certain things to be going well in order to really make their attack well. And for Barboza, it's pressure and leg kicks, and then those hands start to land. And for Chikadze, he's at his best when he's pressuring his opponents and when he's throwing those body kicks. And then those body kicks, they set up everything else that he does. And he does use his length very well.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the pressure aspect of things, and we are going to be in the apex. We're going to be in the smaller cage, which I do think that kind of favors Barboza, because he's going to be able to close the distance better. He's going to be able to pressure better, and Giga's not going to have as much room to move around. So I think pressure is definitely key for the Barboza side. I think he's going to want to make Giga uncomfortable. When Giga's comfortable, and he's looking good, like in the Omar Morales fight, he was very comfortable in that fight. Morales kind of, basically did nothing. He didn't make him uncomfortable. But in the Jamal Emmers fight, Jamal Emmers in the third round, he was coming forward. He was throwing volume, and Giga looked very uncomfortable. He did slow down tremendously in that fight. And I feel like Barboza is going to have to do the same thing, just come forward and just throw volume, make Giga uncomfortable. So yeah, I do like that you brought that up. But yeah, I think the striking is going to be very, very competitive, at least early. I can see the very first couple rounds being very competitive rounds where we're going to have trouble scoring them. The judges are going to have trouble scoring them. But I think as the fight goes on, and we'll kind of talk about it a little bit more, but Giga does slow down as the fight goes on. He slowed down bad in the Brandon Davis fight. He slowed down, lost that third round. In the Austin Springer fight, he slowed down, got submitted in that third round on the Contender Series against Jamal Emmers. He slowed down in the third round. He slows down as the fight goes on. And you mentioned the pressure of Barboza. If he does come and he throws a lot of volume, he pressures Giga, what is Giga going to look like in the third round? And then in the fourth round, in the fifth round, where he's never, ever been to. So, I think the striking, at least early, is going to be competitive, but I'm curious to see how Giga does look when it does, or if it does get to those championship rounds.
Absolutely. And Edson Barboza, even though he's much more experienced, he's only been into the championship rounds once.
Yep.
And that was against Kevin Lee, and he lost that fight, but that was a grind of a fight. Kevin Lee had over 15 minutes of control time, and that fight finished in the fifth round. So, man, that was a tough fight for Edson. He's not going to get ground on like that by one Giga Chikadze. I can assure you of that. I had just watched the Contender Series debut of Giga, and it was very interesting because Giga was talking to the guys like they do. They get to know the fighters that are coming in. They kind of find out their personal stories and such. And Giga was very upfront, and he said that he was kickboxing in glory at 143 pounds. Now he's fighting in the UFC at 145, and he was talking about, being a 6-foot featherweight, that weight cut affects him. It seriously affects him, and he was very honest and says, I slow down in the third round because I cut a lot of weight. It's very difficult. These are tough weight cuts for me to get down to 145. Now, we can absolutely say the same thing about Barboza, being a former lightweight. That guy, he didn't, as you see some of these guys and they got a six-pack, and most of us guys will never have a six-pack in our lives, and these guys, they'll have a six-pack and then decide that they're going to cut another 10 pounds. I don't know how the hell they do it, but we have seen Barboza's conditioning hold up better for sure than than Chikadze's thus far, and he's far more experienced. So you gotta like that. But if we look at the grappling stats here, they're not really that important, are they? Chikadze 6 takedown attempts in 7 fights, so less than 1 takedown attempt per fight. Barboza 18 takedown attempts in 25 fights, so less than 1 takedown attempt per fight. Both of these guys prefer to keep it standing. More than I'd say 79% of Edson Barboza's UFC career has been at striking range, and for Giga, it's 89%. So Giga's takedown defense is not great. Maybe Barboza can choose to grapple a little bit to try to win a round, maybe to try to tire him out. Maybe he tries to get a takedown early, get Giga's arms filling up with blood a little bit, and then maybe, he could take some of the sting off those punches, really kind of wear on Giga's gas tank and win that way. It's not likely, though. We don't want to try to bet on Edson saying, oh, he's got a big grappling advantage, because he's never using that. He's never trying to control people, out-control his opponents. He's not trying to win that way. Maybe he tries it here. It's a possibility, just not likely. So, when we see that 79% and 89% of these guys' fights are taking place in the center of the cage at striking distance, I think what we want to do is spend more time just analyzing the striking, and I think we did a pretty good job breaking that down. What do you think about the grappling aspects of this fight?
Yeah, like I said, I think if anybody goes for takedowns, it's going to be Edson. And it wouldn't completely shock me if he was to go for a takedown, because you take a look at Giga and on the Contender Series, he was taken down 4 times by Austin Springer and submitted in that third round. In his UFC debut against Brandon Davis, he was taken down 3 times. After that, he was taken down 2 times for Jamal Emmers. After that, he faced a guy that's not really UFC caliber in Irwin Rivera. I believe Rivera went 0 for 4 in takedowns. After that, Omar Morales, for some reason, decided to shoot 0 takedowns. After that, I believe Jamie Simmons went like 0 for 3 on takedowns. After that, Cub Swanson did not have an opportunity to get takedowns. But yeah, Brandon Davis, 3 takedowns. Jamal Embers, 2 takedowns. Springer, 4. So I think, if Edson was to mix in a takedown, I think he could potentially get it. I believe he's like either a brown belt or black belt in BJJ. Very solid grappler, but he doesn't really use it offensively. You take a look at Barboza in his fights. Had a takedown against Paul Felder in 2019. Had a takedown against Gilbert Melendez in 2016. 2 takedowns against Tony Ferguson in 2015. And after that, he had 2 takedowns in 2011 and then 2 takedowns in 2010. So you just see that it's just not something he does. But would it completely shock me if he went for a takedown? No. But is it something that we're going to, be able to bank on? Probably not. But if he did get it down to the mat, I think he'd have a pretty significant advantage. But again, can we really bank on it to do that? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think this is a striking battle. I think, Barboza will thrive when he's pressuring. I think Giga will thrive when he's pressuring. So whoever's game plan is more conducive to moving forward is probably the one that's going to get the job done in this fight. But both of these guys have got serious power. Both of these guys can shut your lights off with one good shot, whether it's to the body, to the head, to the leg. They're both so versatile. So let's look at the strength of schedule here. Obviously, Barboza has fought the tougher competition. It's, this is almost moot to talk about it, but it's important to go into detail and to take a look at who these guys have fought. The win-loss ratio of Edson Barboza's opponents on the aggregate is 1.51, and it's 1.4 for Chikadze. So just on the ratio, it looks pretty similar. But the average record of an Edson Barboza opponent is about 8 and 5.25, while Giga Chikadze opponent is 3 and 2.14. So obviously Barboza fighting the far more experienced competition here. When we look at the wins, the average opponent of the average guy that Barboza beats has a record of about 7 and 5 with about 12 total fights, while it's about 3.5 and 2 1/3 for Chikadze, so less than 6 total fights. So Barboza's beating guys are twice as experienced as the guys that Giga is beating. And then if you look at the losses, Giga lost to Austin Springer and he's 0-1. So, there's not even a ratio there. It's 0. And, the guys that are beating Barboza have on the aggregate 10 wins and about 6 losses. So obviously he's losing the killers. And if we go to the advanced stats here, we can take a look at some of these names. The names that he's lost to: Jamie Varner, Donald Cerrone, Michael Johnson, El Kukui, Tony Ferguson, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Kevin Lee, Justin Gaethje, Paul Felder, Dan Ige, and he probably won that Dan Ige fight. And then he's got quality wins over guys like Shane Burgos, Makwan Amirkhani, Dan Hooker, Beneil Dariush, Gilbert Melendez, Anthony Pettis, Paul Felder, Bobby Green, Evan Dunham, Danny Castillo, Rafael Oliveira, Lucas Martins, Terry Adam, and the Terry Adam knockout was something else. Ross Pearson, Anthony Njokuani, Mike Lulo. This guy's been in the UFC since 2010. He's got 16 wins at the highest level. The average, the cumulative opponent record, 111 wins and 95 losses are the guys that he's beat. And the guys that have beaten him have a cumulative record of 97 wins and 53 losses. This guy's really only losing to people that are of the highest level of the division. And we're going to have to find out if that's where Giga belongs. Because in order for him to belong there, he's going to have to go through a guy like Edson Barboza. But Edson Barboza's been doing this for a minute.
Yep, for sure. I mean, yeah, you bring up some of those losses, and it's just like the best of the best guys. And you mentioned it. I thought he did win the Dan Ige fight, but Paul Felder, Justin Gaethje, Kevin Lee, Khabib, Ferguson, Michael Johnson, Cerrone, like those are his lot. Just crazy to think about. I did wanted to get into Giga's record, prior to getting into the UFC, and I was taking a look at this, man. I almost puked, and I kind of remember why I was so low on Giga coming into the UFC on the Contender Series and all that, because you take a look, he makes his MMA debut against a 4-1 guy in 2015, loses that by unanimous decision. Next fight, he beats an 0-0 guy. Fight after that, he beats a 1-10 guy. Fight after that, he beats an 0-13 guy in 2017 in June. After that, he beats an 0-1 guy in 2017 December. After that, he beats an 0-0 guy in 2018. After that, a 2-31 guy arm bars him in 12 seconds in 2018. After that, beats an 0-1 guy, taps him out to punches in 2019. And after he does beat that 0-1 guy, he makes his UFC debut against Brandon Davis. And in that Davis fight, he got taken down like 4 times. It was a split decision. It was a split decision win over Brandon Davis. And it was a close fight. I scored it for Giga personally, but after that, he took on Jamal Emmers in a fight that I did score for Jamal Emmers in that fight. We talked about a little bit on stat tickers. Like Emmers, he could have easily won that fight, man. In the first round, he did not go for any takedowns. I was like, what are you doing? Giga outlands him 13-8. Second round, he finally goes for a takedown. Jamal Emmers outlands him 14-12. And Jamal Emmers also gets 1 minute and 26 seconds of control time. But Giga does reverse him. The judges do score that round for Giga. I personally had it for Emmers. And then round 3, it's just Emmers all day. Emmers all day outlands Giga 32-13. And, that's a big red flag, right? Like, what happens if Barboza gets Giga into the third round and Giga only lands like 13 significant strikes? And that's like a big red flag to me. Like he lost the third round to Emmers. He lost the third round to Davis. And obviously he lost in the third round against Austin Springer on the Contender Series. And then he goes on to fight Erwin Rivera, a guy that's not UFC caliber. But this win against Omar Morales, that win's pretty good. Although Omar Morales did not really do many things in that fight, kind of just stood there and let Giga dictate the pace. I thought it was a solid win. After that, does knock out Jamie Simmons, which was his first knockout in the UFC, a guy that probably is not UFC caliber. And then he does beat Cub Swanson. It's just crazy to look at the level of competition difference, whereas, Giga is having close fights with Jamal Emmers, Brandon Davis, whereas Edson Barboza's, having, beating Dan Hooker by knockout. He is beating Benil Dariush by knockout, So I think the level of competition difference is just what sticks out the most to me. I think the striking is going to be close and competitive early. It's just, what happens if Giga starts to slow down in that third round? What happens if the fight gets to the fourth round, to the fifth round? How is Giga going to look? Is he going to slow down like he did in the Emmers fight? If he does, I think he's in big trouble on Go Easy.
I'm looking at Giga and the amount of strikes that he's absorbed in his UFC fights. He's never absorbed more than 54 significant strikes in a fight. Edson Barboza is going to hit him a lot. And it's going to hurt. 49 strikes against Springer, and a lot of those were ground strikes. 34 against Davis, 54 against Emmers, and then 34 in 3 rounds against Erwin Rivera, 34 in 3 rounds against Omar Morales. But you look at a guy like Edson Barboza, who's landing 4.16 significant strikes per minute in a 5-minute round. You're talking about he's going to be absorbing 20 significant strikes per round. He's going to be well into, like the most significant strikes that he's absorbed, like early in that third round. And there's still going to be 2 rounds after that, So, man, Edson and those legs, because Giga's going to have to keep moving and Edson's going to be blasting those legs. If you watch the Shane Burgos fight, he landed 5 leg kicks in the first 30 seconds. This guy knows what he needs to do. And so Giga's opponents, we just haven't seen a kickboxer anywhere close to the level of the guy that he's going to be facing here today. The best one is Omar Morales, and Omar Morales is a quality kickboxer, but as we said in that fight, he kind of got mystified. Edson's not going to be mystified here. No. He's seen better, this guy's been in there with El Kukui. He's been in there with Michael Johnson. He's been fighting some of the best lightweights on the planet. Now he's down at featherweight, and he's fighting a guy that, you know, cuts a shit ton of weight to get down there. So I do like Edson Barboza here, man. I think there's a lot of statistical things that are in his favor, and there's a huge strength of schedule advantage. There's a huge experience advantage, and the power numbers are really not even in Giga's favor. I mean, Edson has gotten how many? I think it's 14 UFC knockdowns for Edson Barboza. Yeah, man, I'm leaning Barboza pretty heavily here, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning them, pretty decently as well. But we take a look at the line, and it definitely does tell another story here. And I get why. I mean, Giga is a very flashy striker. A lot of people do like this guy, a fan favorite. But man, I kind of feel like this line's just a little bit disrespectful considering the level of competition difference. I mean, this is going to be Giga's toughest fight by a pretty significant margin. I mean, his best win is like a 38-year-old, 39-year-old Cub Swanson. So the line did open up -150 Edson Barboza. It is currently -118. Giga Chikadze opened up +130. He's currently -102. Honestly, Weezy, I kind of agree with that opener a little bit more. Barboza around -150 sounds a little bit more correct to me. As far as the fight goes to decision, we do have fight goes to decision -105. Fight doesn't go to decision is -135. No really strong lean on the fight goes or fight doesn't go for me, but both guys are very dangerous. But both guys are also very durable. You mentioned that Edson Barboza has only been knocked down a handful of times in 25 UFC fights, and then Giga Chikadze has never been knocked down. But with that said, he's never fought Edson Barboza. So any strong lean on the fight goes or fight doesn't go for you? And what do you think of that? The line of Edson Barboza -118 on FanDuel, it's -106, and on DraftKings it's -105.
So I'm really liking that fight doesn't go to decision at -135 because first of all, in Edson Barboza's how many fights now? He's got 25 UFC fights. He's never been 5 rounds. Giga Chikadze's never even been in a fight that was supposed to go 5 rounds for MMA. So yeah, neither one of these guys have been 5 rounds. So at -135, you're talking about an implied probability that's, it's under 60%. It's pretty compelling, in my opinion, that none of these guys have been the distance. And Giga Chikadze is most dangerous early. And if this goes to the championship rounds, these guys are going to be exhausted, and they will have already landed a bunch of heavy shots. I don't see this one seeing the scorecards.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with the kind of shots they're going to be landing, Uncle Weezy. I mean, I definitely agree. Both guys are very, very powerful. I'm more so interested in the Barboza money line, like -105 on DK, -106 on FanDuel. It could come back to bite me, but I just think this line's very disrespectful. I think Barboza's fought the better level of competition. He is 35 years old, but it's not like Giga's like 28, 29 years old. Giga's 31, so 32. So yeah, I like Barboza here quite a bit, and I'm very tempted at that money line. But yeah, like you mentioned, fight doesn't go to decision, -135. The over-under is probably going to be set at 4.5 rounds. Maybe take a look at the under there, because with how these guys are going to be throwing, the fact that they have not been the full 5 rounds, I'm kind of with you. I think it does finish inside the distance. I'm more so, I think it's going to finish like later in the fight, maybe the 4th round, maybe the 5th round. But yeah, I very well can see a finish here.
I could too. Giga is so deadly early, and the way that Edson wears on you with those leg attacks, and the way that Giga is going to wear on you with those body attacks. Who's to say he doesn't land a couple of big body kicks early and just kind of take the gas tank out of Barboza? The more I look at this, the more I like that fight doesn't go, and I think that that's not quite priced correctly here.
Yeah, I like it for sure. So my final thoughts, I'm going to go with Barboza. I think he's fought the better level of competition by a mile. I mean, it's not even close. It's not even debatable. I think it's going to be very competitive early. I just think as the fight goes on, I think Barboza is going to wear on Giga. He's going to pressure him. He's going to make him uncomfortable. And, we've seen Giga slow down in the past in the 3rd round. So, my question is, what is he going to look in the 4th round and the 5th round? So my final prediction is going to be a Barboza finish. I'm going to say 4th round finish for Edson Barboza. And I'm taking a look at the money line, and I'm also taking a look at some potential violence as well. Uncle Weezy, what are your final thoughts, and what is your final prediction for this fight?
So no matter who I picked here, I would probably bet them inside the distance because I really don't think this fight's going to see the scorecards. And I think Chikadze is going to be he's going to be very dangerous early. But if Barboza pressures Chikadze, he's going to tire him out and he's going to get him out of there as well. So my pick is going to be Edson Barboza by knockout. I'm going to go with third round knockout. But I love the fight doesn't go here. I think Edson Barboza by knockout. I think these are both really good bets. I think there's a lot of value on it here. And if you're of the opinion where you're having a hard time picking one or the other, I think you can just bet the fight doesn't go to decision and just root for a fantastic striking battle and root for somebody to get knocked out. And you don't have to care who.
Yep, that's exactly what I love. I love those violence bets. I love rooting for a finish there. So there we have it. Broke it down, 30 minutes. Pretty effective there. And yeah, looking forward to the fight. I think it's going to be a phenomenal fight. Cannot wait for it. I know a lot of people are going to be on the Giga side, and I know a lot of people are going to be on the Barboza side. I feel like it's one of those fights like last week. A lot of people were really split on Madsen. A lot of people were really split on Guida. A lot of very confident takes on both sides. I feel like it's going to be like that this week. And those are the best fights. They're the most fun fights to watch because a lot of people very confident one way, very confident the other way. I'm excited to see if we can get it right, Weezy. So that is about it. If you guys can leave a like on the video, be much appreciated. Also subscribe if you have not yet. Go check out Weezy on his Twitter, MMA Weezy. Also subscribe to his YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy. He's doing content throughout the week, also including a brand new show that is going to be on Tuesday night. So yeah, that's about it, guys. Good luck for UFC Vegas 35, and we will talk to you soon. See you guys.